Hey,
Hey,
Rebecca.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah,
So,
Patrick and I were just vibing out to the music.
Happy New Year. Yeah, good music, but Happy New Year. So, when is the arbitrary cutoff for New Year's wishes? When is
You
that
know,
at?
I think that has been the conversation due
Yeah.
week for everybody. Like, am I still allowed to say it on January 20th? Now,
Exactly.
old school um, used to be Epiphany, but I know Epiphany is not a thing for everybody. Um,
Ah.
what I've been told this week is as long as the first time you greeted a person within the year, you can still say
Ah.
it.
So it's upon first meet. Okay, I get it. I get it. That works. So if I see the person for the first time in March, I can still say Happy New Year. Is that
That's
the?
what I've heard. Socially, I'm not sure that that works, but
Yeah. And the other item of discussion, and you and I have talked about this, we need a new intro here. All right, so I had to run the Rebecca intro, so we need a Dave and Rebecca intro for
we
this.
need a
The
Dave and
music,
Rebecca intro. We
yeah,
need a Patrick and Biscuit intro.
yes. I mean, the music is great, but gotta get the intro right,
We'll get
with
there.
the visuals and
We'll
stuff.
get there. Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Hey, Patrick, what's going on, buddy? So Biscuit drank his water a little too fast this morning, and he started spitting up a little bit. So I'm like, I don't want him to spit up on set. So let me just hold
You
off
need
on
to
Biscuit a
call.
little
You need
bit.
to call his agent. We need to figure this out.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I had to get I had to get his runner ready too. I had his favorite snacks ready, but spit up on me. So
So what's new, Dave?
what is new? The new year. Gosh. So I like we all do, right? As analysts, I started the new year, what ended last year, where we are all doing like these sort of prediction stuff, what we're seeing for the upcoming year, and so forth. So I'm sort of thinking about, and you'll love this, Rebecca, because you are a musician, a pianist. I have a music background as well. Start the year thinking about flow, right? So my dad's a jazz musician. And
Mhm.
so I've been looking at the whole thing with AI and agentic AI, and I'm like, okay, we've seen too long where the enterprise is like super static, right? We build a static enterprise. And with our background in music, I began to think about flow and how movement begets movement, flow begets flow. And I began to think about flow sort of defines how I look at things, right? And I'm seeing that, flow is about, especially in music and, and I rap too, right? Yeah, I was a part of a college rap group back in
Oh
the days.
yes. Oh
Yes,
yes.
my formative years, and and we used to
We'll
always
we'll
talk about
send
the
out the we'll send
yeah
out the
yeah
YouTube link so everybody can
yeah
see
yeah
that.
right. And we used to always talk about the pocket, how to be in pocket with the rhythm and the rap and stuff like that. And I think the enterprise now is sort of operating without rhythm, right? We've built again the static enterprise, and that we sort of failed over the past, I think, decade or so to optimize the silos, right? So marketing runs on one tempo, you have sales on another tempo, and then support plays a completely different tune. And so I think we've been mistaking in this age of AI, speed and productivity, mistaking speed for flow, right? And so companies are trying to resolve customer tickets faster. We want to onboard employees quicker, and speed does have value, right? But I think flow creates the outcome. And so if we're looking for outcomes, I think flow is a better way to architect for that. And so I've been looking at and talking about the architecture of flow. I know, trying to be all pithy this year, Rebecca. Yeah,
No, it's really interesting though because if you think
yeah,
about it, and I saw what you did on the Zoom blog.
yeah.
If I think about flow, I've got to think about tempo, but I've also got to think about key, right?
Ah,
Because I've got a
yes,
bridge between different departments,
yes,
both in
yes.
terms of tempo and in terms of key or tone.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, you could go a lot. You could go a long
Yeah,
way with this music
yeah,
analogy. I like it.
because as you said, key. Then something has popped up in me. I was the kid that was going into New York City with my dad, the jazz musician, to rehearsals. Probably places that shouldn't have been at 7 years old, but that's another discussion. those some honorary dudes, but fun dudes. But in jazz, right, with improv, like you would start, for instance, say someone hits a key. There's no wrong note, right? In jazz,
Right.
there's no wrong note. So say someone hit something that wasn't planned, then from that moment on, you then flow from that.
Right.
And so everything was like there's no wrong note. Everything wherever you are, if you go to another key or tune, you have to begin flow from that place. So how do you begin to stay that flexible? Yeah, there's a lot of analogies and metaphors with this. We can.
Well, I think it's interesting too, because if you think about, and one of the things that's bugged me for a while is, we talk about AI orchestration.
Hmm.
Again, another music metaphor, right? But what do
Oh
we
yeah,
really
yeah.
mean when we're talking about orchestration? Because it's not, to your point, letting agents
Hmm.
go off and improvise by themselves,
Yes, yes, yes,
right? There
yes.
is kind of a common score that everybody's got to follow.
Sheet music. Yes, Rebecca. Yes, we we're going deep right now. What is the sheet music? Everyone's like, what are they on about? But you're right. So I've been looking at at that architecture flow, right? You mentioned the Zoom article I did, right? And so
Yeah.
in that article, so I had this prediction in there, right, where I said that we're moving, from interaction management to intelligent orchestration, right? And I think as I'm looking at this architecture flow, it's like it requires a whole of enterprise view, right? We have to stop looking at CX and even EX as separate disciplines, which I know was right down your alley, and I'll let you wax on that a little bit, but because the experience of the employee directly dictates the experience of the customer, right? And I think when we look at agentic AI, that serves to me as that orchestration engine, in this sort of model of this architecture of flow, where the agent, monitors the workflow and stages the next action before the human even asks, right? So it's agents with context, right? With the sheet music, they can
Right.
play whatever. Yeah.
And we've got DJ Brent chiming in. He says
Yeah.
flow is different than speed and adds a different kind of value. Yeah, that's absolutely.
Yes, yes, I like that. I like that. I like that.
No, but I mean, I think it's really interesting when you think about, and going back to your point about the employee,
Mhm.
what sets the tone of this is going to be so important moving forward. And I think
Yeah.
we sort of spent a bunch of time in 2025 talking about how accurate I could get AI to be. And
Mhm.
I think more and more we're going to be
Mhm.
talking about not just is it correct, but does it
Yeah.
have that tone? Does it have that
Mm.
note that I
Yes.
want to have with my customers? So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I saw something come through my inbox this morning with that sort of who owns customer experience,
Ooh.
question again. And I think as we think about kind of setting the tone for how our AI interacts with customers, that it's,
Mhm.
yes, it's service, but it's also partly kind of brand marketing,
Mhm.
regulatory, of course, and legal. But
Yeah.
how do I deliver not just the factually correct answer, but the one that leaves my customer with the experience of the brand that I
Right.
want to have?
That is yeah, and I think yeah that goes to sort of I've been looking at again this architecture flow thing where I think in the same article the Zoom when I talk about this universal context layer, right? And so to me, God, remember the middleware days we used to talk about middleware? So I think right now we look at agentic AI that there's this sort of a need for this universal context layer, right? Where it's not
Mhm.
just agents in the wild, naked agents, right? But they're agents that have the sheet music, right, for the enterprise. And we're not deploying them nakedly, but they have the full context, right? And that context sort of requires a unifying structure, right? And so that's that sort of layer that agents need the context to be able to achieve the outcomes that we want them to.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's a really, really interesting context. And I think for you too, you're talking about sort of that unified context layer that could be for anything, right? So it could
Yeah.
be for employees to be accessing, it could be for AI to be accessing, it could be for a
Hmm.
customer to access,
Yeah.
really kind of bringing the stacks together. And I know that's one of the things that you and I talked about the other day that we're certainly looking at,
Yeah.
since our looks at both sort of the CX and the EX stacks, is where that convergence really coming together, and what does that mean for the key players, right? If I have
Yeah.
service and everybody's talking about a platform layer now, at what point do I disintermediate those applications underneath from the users themselves? And do I sort of blur together that kind of CX, EX story
Yeah.
and stack?
No, you're right. Yeah, because I think how do you sort of connect the another music metaphor, the disparate instruments of the enterprise. Oh yeah, we can go really deep on this stuff. But no, but you're right, right? And so yeah, I would love to kind of hear more about how you're looking at the sort of EX and CX convergence. I think we're sort of aligning on that.
Well, I think there are always things that have been aligned. And if we talk purely from a tech perspective, typically CX has been about 36 months ahead of EX, right? It went cloud first, it went industries first, it went embedded analytics first, went AI first. Whereas in terms of actually catching up, I feel like we're closer to them being on even ground today when we look at advancements in AI, right? When you look at what the traditional kind of HCM folks are doing and
Yeah,
the
that's a good
EX
point.
folks are doing, what Oracle's done sort of across their stack in both CX and EX.
Yeah.
There have always been pieces that have crossed over, like workforce engagement management, right, from the contact center side. But I think what we're seeing now is more of a how do we use common and consistent ways to look at things like employee performance? Meaning we're not just looking at the old kind of broken performance review systems, but we're actually looking at sales data. We're actually looking at
Yes.
marketing campaign performance data. We're actually
Yeah.
looking at service data to be able to see how people are really being effective. I think the other thing that really has to change is some of those metrics that we look at too, right? Because if I am using AI to automate a lot of conversations and putting those employee agents in more complex, frustrating, difficult, high touch customer interactions to solve, am I
Yeah.
still measuring and incenting them on call time, on case resolution time?
Exactly.
Just so much,
Yes.
right? I'm not incentivizing the behaviors that I want. So I think a lot of what we're going
Exactly.
to be talking about in 2026 is how does the employee experience and the customer experience come together? Not the sort of fuzzy measures, but what are the real things that I can start to measure and look at that really impact business performance, right? So how effective is the AI handoff
Yeah.
between AI and employee agent? How often is what agents recommend from an AI perspective something that is actually useful for the employee or for the customer? What are those sorts
Right.
of things that really translate into better business value
Yeah.
rather than just was the call shorter, was the case faster?
Right, yeah. Are you getting to an actual resolution, right, where there is actual customer? You're right, where there's actual customer value. Like, what's the actual outcome of that faster, you know, call to
Yeah.
completion rate, right? Yeah. Is the customer satisfied? Was the question answered? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Right. Right. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how these folks that are talking about platforms and platform data approaches, how this shakes out
Yeah,
in 2026, right? Because if you think back to like, I can remember late, I don't know, late 2024, early 2025, there were an awful lot of folks who were talking about AI when you asked them about sort of the underlying data structure and how they were
yeah,
doing. They were like, oh, you don't need to worry about that. From
yeah,
everybody saying, don't worry your pretty little head about it,
yeah.
to let me get super, super technical and explaining it to you and good luck understanding it,
Right.
to, well, we've got the platform and the data. And
Mm-hmm.
I think what people will be challenged in 2026 to do is to say, here's how our data approach is different. Here's how it's more valuable in a way that isn't just technically accurate, but
Right.
that their customer can really understand, right? Because
Yeah.
if I am in a HR staff member, a payroll administrator, whatever, I'm
Yeah.
going to hear pitches, and my CIO is going to hear pitches from the platform folks, from the app folks, from a
Yeah.
bunch of different folks, all about which agent I should be using to effectively automate functions in my department. And
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
want to be the champion for whatever HR platform I'm using as the AI agent of choice, I've got to be able to explain not just how it works, but how it manages data, security, integrity, privacy,
Mm-hmm.
governance, all of that. and what the benefit is, not just to my own department, but to the broader organization.
Absolutely. And I think good point on the data stuff too, because for the past couple years, everyone's talking about, data, clean data, get your data right, and all that's true. But I think we run the risk of, sort of becoming data rich and workflow poor, right? Where you're focusing on all this data, but but if the data is just sort of static, right? Back to our sort of flow analogy, right? If the data is just static, right, and it has all the potential energy, high school physics, right? Potential energy. How do we get it to kinetic energy?
Yeah.
The metaphors are rich today, Veronica. They're rich today.
Well, how do you get it to context, which is really the piece that I'm
Exactly.
starting to hear folks talk more about, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about bringing all the data into one place or zero copying it or whatever
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing. It's which data do I actually need? How current does it need to be
Exactly.
effective?
Exactly.
These sort
Right.
of
Yeah.
static, go back to the static warehouse, not what I need
Yeah.
anymore. I need something much more dynamic than that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because like we're creating all these data lakes and the rich data lakes, but if the data lacks kinetic energy to move it, to move it to the moment of action where it's needed, right, for a customer, for whatever the workflow is, then it's useless, right? It has to be able to move. So, can your data move? Can the potential energy move to kinetic energy, right? Can it flow to where we need it? Yeah, absolutely.
And does the data actually get me to insights or AI actions that are valuable?
Exactly, exactly. And so I think that disconnect, right, is where the friction happens, right? That's the friction tax, if you will, right? Where you may get stuck, manually, bridging gaps where the employee actually is stuck manually bridging the gaps themselves, trying to play that context layer themselves, and that's
Mhm,
tough. Yeah.
mhm. So, what else are you thinking about for the first half of the year, Dave? What else is on your mind?
Man, so I think writing on this stuff, right, sort of defining this architecture flow and so forth, but also we've got some shows coming up, right? I know we've got the IRL in
IRL.
Atlanta coming up, right? That's going to be fun. We're going to have a bunch of smart folks talking about tech in the Atlanta Tech Village. It's going to be
So, for
awesome.
you guys that don't know about IRL, PPN,
Yes.
IRL coming up, Atlanta. When is it? March.
March 12th. Yeah, March
March.
12th, I believe. Yeah. It's gonna be fun. Last year's show, we had the big snowstorm in Atlanta, and that hit the southern part of the U.S. It was crazy when there was snow in New Orleans. We were like, yeah. It was
Yeah.
wild, but this year should
That
be
was
fun.
quite the
Yeah,
time. If
it
anybody
was
who's
quite the
been
time.
in a snowstorm in Atlanta knows what it's like.
Yes,
It's
I remember the Uber ride from the airport to the hotel, and the driver I'm like, black ice is a thing, right? He had no idea. I'm like, it looks fine, but you can literally start sliding right now. So I'm like, slow down. He was driving too fast. I'm like, slow down, buddy, slow down.
I'm just looking at a comment that came in from
Mhm.
Amber. She was talking about sort of the issue in 2024 with how do you get ROI outside of marketing? How does this
Mm.
type of apps convert to business data? And now she's seeing the apps that produce data at the end of 2025. Yeah, you're absolutely
Interesting.
right. And I
Yeah.
think everybody's talking about data, and it's interesting if you look at, I'll go back to one other space before we talk more about events, because I wanted to mention Amber's comment.
Mm.
Um, everybody's talking about data. If you're talking about UKG, they say we have the most data about employees because of all their
Yeah.
front report stuff. If you look at what Workhuman now is talking about, I don't know if you've looked at them at all, Dave, but they're talking about all those recognition apps that we put in during COVID, right, to virtually
Mm.
recognize employees and that sort of thing. How do I
Yeah.
use that as a source of data for really understanding what the skills and performance of my workforce are, right? So
Yeah.
how do I understand every time Dave comments on somebody on Rebecca's team doing a good job in context? How do I use that as a sort of real-time data source for understanding performance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And bringing that kind of unstructured data into what is a pretty broken process, I think, when we talk about performance reviews in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Brian's just reminiscing on his flight to our IRL. He's going to try again this year. I guess he never made it last time.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So hopefully, I think well, a lot of flights got definitely got delayed last year, and a lot of people were stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're hoping that you'll be joining us this year, Brian. So we've got IRL coming up.
Yeah,
You and I are also going to do, I think, a live show
from IRL, yes.
from
Moving from
IRL, but
IRL,
also
yes.
from Zoho,
Yeah,
right?
and so Zoho Days coming up as well too. So that should be another fun show. And funny, speaking of this universal context layer stuff, if you ever, this is no ad or anything, but one of the primary vendors who's probably thought through this whole concept of the platform thing that Rebecca was talking about and having that sort of context layer that stitches or sort of connects all their different apps. I think Zoho is an interesting company to look at because they have sort of the platform and then app in every particular discipline from sales, marketing. So they're interesting. Although folks a lot on SMB, I know they're trying to move enterprise and working to do so, but if you look at them as an interesting reference point, they kind of have a lot of what I've been talking about in terms of that universal context layer with the AI, the agentic stuff, but also tied into the actual business application. So obviously, most of the major vendors are trying to go there. Microsoft broadened out their portfolio, right? With
Yeah.
CRM and ERP and so forth. Salesforce as well too. So everyone's trying to get there, but I think from a small vendor standpoint, Zoe kind of has an interesting, broader look at it from an S&B perspective.
Well, and they started that way too,
Yeah,
right? You also have the Zia layer that goes across everything. So they have that
exactly.
kind of common data layer. And I would argue probably the only other folks that do that to a certain extent today would be somebody like Oracle with Fusion Cloud applications, where it's
Hmm.
all on that kind of common OS,
Exactly.
common database, common AI
Exactly.
layer.
Exactly, and it's actually where we see if you look at what Zoom's doing, right, with their Zoom platform, they're sort of trying to move that way too, adding now, moving from the UCAS and the CCAS, so having a whole overall CX right portfolio with their contact center and their communication stuff. So trying to sort of broaden that portfolio. So I think everyone's trying to move in that direction. Zoe sort of, to your point, has been doing it for a lot
Long time.
longer. Yeah.
Yeah. So Zoho Day, do we know who we're having on the show for Zoho Day or not yet?
We don't know yet, but it's gonna be fun. So stay tuned. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been with Austin, right? I think Austin, Texas. Yeah, that
Austin.
should
Mhm.
that should
Mhm.
be fun. So with February, right? So that's shouldn't be as humid. So it should be a good moderate climate. I'm thinking, right?
Get us some barbecue and yeah.
Barbecue, yes. Usually for Austin trips, there's a lot of barbecue, a lot of eating. So.
I think I think it's legally required.
You know what it is? I think it's the state constitution or something. Yeah, you have to you have to eat barbecue. Oh my god, what else is going on? What's happening?
Oh, gosh, we're already 2/3 of the way into January, and I feel like
Yes,
the dance card's getting pretty full.
yes, it is getting pretty full. I think that the events are stacking up, and we're even missing events because I think there's sort of conflicts and stuff as well too. So I usually go to Enterprise Connect, but now I think IRL sort of conflicts with that, right?
IRL
So
at the same
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody about that this morning. I don't know. IRL is
It's quite a show.
quite the draw. Quite the draw.
So what would you want to get out of IRL this year? And with the breadth of talent that we're going to have there, we have people from all disciplines, right? But I think I'm sure AI would be a hot topic, right?
Mhm.
We should probably should we get more music metaphors, happening? But
I think we need to at least schedule some sort of jam session while we're there, given the
yes,
number of people that.
I think we should, and I think we should incorporate Brent as a DJ, right? So imagine a jam session, musicians and a DJ just going for it. I think that'd be great.
Yes, we need to have a music event.
Indeed, indeed. I think hopefully
Maybe
probably
with an original score. I don't know. We'll have to think about it.
ooh. We did so, folks. Rebecca and I did threaten an original score for the Crunch intro. We never got around to it, but I don't know. 2026, you might have to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. And Brian is voting for a mandatory chicken fried steak restaurant crawl.
Ooh,
Could one
lead the
do that in
way.
Austin? Are there enough places in Austin for chicken fried steak, or will we have to go elsewhere? Brian's the right person to answer that question, right?
Chicken fried steak, lead the way.
Hey, we only have a few minutes left. Do you want to do a
Yep.
little crunch time?
Let's do the crunch time. Let's see here. Crunch time. Alrighty. Shall we do it?
It's crunch time. We need to get some music for crunch time too, I think.
Yeah, I didn't realize crunch time didn't have music.
Yeah. I think we'll make some updates for 2020.
So yeah,
So,
so maybe
so Patrick has a couple of questions for you, Dave.
yeah, go for it.
Where is your happiest place?
My happiest place
Where are you happiest?
recently playing basketball. That's been interesting. I've been playing a lot of pickup basketball lately, which has been
Really?
fun. Yeah, it's happy, but the next day is not so happy in the morning because I'm not 20 anymore, and so playing with a bunch of 20-year-olds at the 24-hour fitness is yeah, they're moving too fast. You gotta slow down. What are you trying to prove? Oh
That's great.
yes, yes, go for it. Yes.
I understand the sentiment about not loving it the next morning. But, you play with the same folks all the time, or just whoever's there?
Yeah, so it's a good group of folks, mixed skill levels, some old, some young. So, but yeah, it's. I've realized now that I need to be put on a minutes restriction, and I can't play in back-to-back days. I've got to sort of like space it out during the week.
Icy hot.
Yes, a lot of icy hot, a lot of icy hot.
Yeah, see, my happy place isn't as nearly as impressive and aesthetic as yours. Because I would say mine is the beach.
The beach.
Although swimming, I guess swimming.
Yeah. Now, what beach do you go to now? I mean, because the weather is obviously now a little chiller.
Yes. New England. I mean, I grew up going not far from where you used to be in Madison.
Yeah, yes. So one thing about New England beaches is New England, as a whole, especially in the warmer climates, is very green and it's very beautiful. One of my life shocks when moving here to the Bay Area, 25 minutes, I guess, south of San Francisco,
Yeah.
was that while there are beaches, you cannot swim in them, nor even entertain the idea because they're not warm waters. Like you have to sort of drive down to or fly down to LA to get like a real, kind of a
Yeah.
beach experience. Yeah, here in the Bay Area, it's not as swimmable. And so when you think of, I'm moving to California, right? Beach, not here. Yeah, go a little further south to LA or so forth.
Yeah, I know. Every time I go to see the surfers in like Pacifica, I'm like, oh, that's cold.
Yeah, it's cold. Yeah, it looks cold, right? You're like, yeah, you look cold.
Yeah. Wow, well, we covered a lot of ground and
Yeah.
a lot of nonsense pretty
Yes,
quickly.
a lot of music talk, which was great.
Lot more
Yeah.
to talk about as we think about flow is a key word for 2026.
Yes, the architecture flow. Maybe one of these shows I'll do a rap flow. We'll see
Oh,
how it goes. Yes.
I would offer to beatbox for you, but you really don't want me to do that.
Oh no, I'm thinking serious piano, like rap to piano. Let's do that. Like, let's
We'll
just
work on it. Let's workshop it a little bit before I
right.
put
Yeah.
it on you.
Da 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 da.
All right, everybody. Well, happy New
All right,
Year.
all right, guys. See you
Thanks for
next
joining us.
time.